Mark, in some areas, though, people are beginning to see that something's happening and they don't like it. And you've picked up on China and Mexico here.
Yes, I may have to give a slightly abbreviated version of this report. This is pretty astounding. It's not unknown, but it's been underreported. And the Coalition for a Prosperous America, the CPA, a pretty good think tank in Washington, D.C., has been sounding the alarm, especially throughout 2024. This first segment, or first slide, China's auto sector is moving to Mexico, 12 new manufacturing plants set up since 2019. And we'll keep moving on from there. Another report from CPA, Mexico is growing as new China hub. 2024 exports already breaking records. A couple of very vital reports. People can look up the Coalition for a Prosperous America for more on that. This is a news bulletin. I wrote about this. U.S. Senator Josh Hawley, the Coalition for a Prosperous America, among other sources, have been raising serious concerns about China setting up shop in Mexico to manufacture huge quantities of automobiles and heavy equipment in order to export the finished products into the U.S. market, thereby avoiding the tariffs set up under President Trump in 2018 against vehicles sent directly from China to the U.S. This was leaked a little bit at the recent Chicago Council on Global Affairs program that I covered for the column, so I continued it for today. Congress so far has not budged on this issue, however, with many members beholden to big business. However, Mr. Hawley, the Republican out of Missouri, the former Missouri Attorney General, is looking positively populist here, and he introduced the Protecting American Auto Workers from China Act, a proposed law back on February 28th of this year. That's the day that it was read twice and referred to the Committee on Finance in the Senate, but there's been zero Senate or House overall action ever since. Congress seems to be frozen on this. This is Mr. Hawley's press release. I won't read it. The link is there for those that want to read that and learn more about Mr. Hawley, one of the better senators, arguably, in the U.S., but you got to grade with a curve. And we'll keep going from there. This is Mr. Hawley to the left and Maine Democrat Jared Golden, to the right. There's a House version of that bill that Mr. Hawley mentioned. That House version is H.R. 8351, sponsored by Jared Golden out of Maine, and it was introduced May 10 and referred that day to the Ways and Means Committee. According to the Library of Congress, however, as of September 22nd, there wasn't a single, there was not a single co-sponsor of that bill in either chamber for what's clearly a bipartisan bill worthy of serious consideration. Mr. Hawley was quoted in that press release. I quoted him from the press release as saying, if Joe Biden wants to support American auto workers, he should start by protecting them from the existential threat posed by China, as Mr. Hawley sees it. We must put American workers first, bring jobs back to American soil, and reject radical climate mandates that make China rich and America poor. And I'll mention, Brian, that it appears that electric vehicles are a major thing. And this may be, I can't say for sure, but this Chinese production on Mexican soil may be Joe Biden's way of making electric vehicles the wave of the future and making it seem inevitable. So therefore, we could actually make the transition to electric vehicles, which would be a major part of a segment of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. But anyway, Hawley's legislation comes in the wake of Joe Biden's sweeping mandates on the American auto industry to force a transition to electric vehicles, as Hawley sees it. Under these radical Green New Deal rules, as many as 2/3 of all autos sold in the U.S. would be electric vehicles by the 2030s. And Hawley's legislation would, if ever enacted, increase the base tariff on auto imports from China to 100%, for a total tariff of 125% on all autos imported directly from China, but also apply the higher tariffs to all imported vehicles manufactured by Chinese automakers, irrespective of where the autos are manufactured. So that's the sum and substance of what Mr. Hawley is up to. And what this is all about, Brian, as the Coalition for a Prosperous America is outlining here, is a concept called nearshoring. We've heard of outsourcing, we've heard of insourcing. Now, what we're learning about here with this issue is nearshoring. And I won't read this slide. People can look up the Coalition for a Prosperous America online. The only thing I'll mention here at the bottom of the slide is a Morgan Stanley quote. Nearshoring has the potential to boost the growth of Mexican manufacturing exports to the U.S. to an estimated $609 billion in the next 5 years. That's a June 2023 Morgan Stanley report entitled Mexico is Poised to Ride the Nearshoring Wave. The only upside I can think of this, Brian, and this is highly speculative, is there might be higher paying jobs created in Mexico that might help Central America, and that might cut back on the illegal immigration coming into the U.S. There is a possibility of that as sort of an inadvertent silver lining. And this last slide here that we need to go into is more of what I wrote. The 4 bullet points are what matter the most. A dozen new auto parts makers have set up shop in Mexico since the Section 301 tariffs were imposed in 2018. Some of those auto parts makers were invited by Ford and Tesla. Since June of 2022, more than 20 Chinese auto parts makers and car makers have announced a combined $7.06 billion in investments in Mexico. In February 2023, Tesla announced a $5 billion assembly line in Nuevo Leon State, roughly a 4-hour drive from the Texas border. That factory will have the production capacity to build roughly 1 million Teslas, that's electronic vehicles, annually, many of them US bound. And Chinese automakers and parts companies have actually been operating from Mexico since joining the World Trade Organization way back in 2001. And 8 auto parts companies were already in Mexico prior to the US enactment of the 2018 Section 301 tariffs. And I believe the last slide is just a chart of the 12 or so companies already operating in Mexico that are directly connected to China. And viewers can freeze that and look at that in more detail. So under the circumstances, Brian, that's all I've got for now. But a very, very interesting and rather troubling in some ways development. And this was something we'll keep a very close eye on over extended periods of time. So there we go.
Mark, thank you very much for that. And of course, one of the things it demonstrates is the power of global companies such as Ford, Tesla coming into the picture, where their decisions can be forced through governments and without any direct engagement in any form of democracy with the public. So, yeah, it will be fascinating to see how that goes. Now, Debbie, I'm just going to skip through a little bit here, and we'll bring you into your finally 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4, apparently.
Well, you know what? I saw this. What I say always is go back to the UK Column website, because we have stood the test of time. I mean, honestly, some of the stuff on the website is extraordinary. And this article caught my eye by Malcolm Massey. He wrote this in June 2013, and 225. Almost could be 2025, couldn't it? And when you look it's entitled 1984 in the 21st century, how appropriate. But when you look in the article, and the next slide will just give you a little tiny flavour of what the article's about. It's talking about the feminization of men. It's talking about children being bombarded with sexual content in schools. So everything that we are seeing now, Martin was talking about. So I was well impressed. But you know what? Finally, I want to introduce you to Gwen Walz. This is Tim Walz, the US VP nomination, his wife, who is a teacher, and she's into criminal justice too. And she was talking at one of their rallies. And if I was American, and I am half American, I'd be embarrassed if I was watching this. Watching her turn the page. Have a look at this.
But I kind of liked it when she did this. Turn the page. You like that? Okay, so I need you to be with me and practice with me. What are we going to do? We're going to turn the page. Oh, pretty good. Do it again. We're going to turn the page. And we're going to turn the page. All right, so I'm going to be watching you, because when I see Wisconsin, and I'm one watching nationally on TV, because this is a pretty important place, and Minnesota helped you practice with this. You just show me this. Turn the page, right? Turn the page. And you know what else that looks like? Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Donald Trump. We are turning the page. 52 days and we are turning the page. 52 days and it is bye-bye, Donald Trump.
Maybe it's time for us to say bye-bye, Brian. I don't know what to say after that.
It's definitely time to say bye-bye to our audience today. We'll just leave you to think about the news. Look at the UK Column website. Go to the show notes for the detail. Please share this information because this mad society is being built very quickly around us, and it's up to all of us to speak out and stop it as fast as possible. Debbie, thank you very much for joining me today. Mark, thank you also. We will be in UK Column Extra. If you're a member, you'll be able to join us there. We're going to talk through some of the content of the news in a bit more detail. But if you're not yet a member, we will see you on Monday at 1 o'clock. And I'll just say that Mike, unfortunately, is away for a few days due to some personal issues, but he will be back next week. We will end there. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.